So let's start discussion on the very important topic in a risk management perspective for the structuring the site for NaBFID infrastructure project. So in this slide or in this video, we are going to discuss on some key focus on the capital stake, security, covenants, reserve, and disbursement control, where we are discuss on the objective of the financial finance structuring, capital stack design and prices, and the capital stack key ratios that NaBFID will monitor or that NaBFID will taking cares, security packages and ring facing to the project, covenant lender dashboard, reserve account liquidity buffers in transaction retention account, disbursement mechanism, money out control, and mini case, and some interview questions that will help you to prepare more, and the key takeaway for the NaBFID senior business analyst that you need to understand while you are going for the interview and preparing for the exam. So guys, before I would like to move for the next slide. I would like to request you guys, if you are new to my video and if you are interested in the role of quant analyst or research analyst or the NaBFID senior analyst role or the business analyst role, credit risk analyst role, so please do like and subscribe my channel. So I'll creating videos on these video topics, and that will definitely get help you to get a better opportunity in the market. So let's start discussion on the objective of project finance structuring. So what are the key objective of the project financing structuring? So bankability, control, visibility, and alignment. Under the bankability, match risk to capital with long tenure and the low cost debt. So in a bankability, we will think on the match the risk capital with long tenure debt is there. So long tenure, the infrastructure project itself is a 20 to 25 years old and the low cost of debt, so there is immediate the debt will receive, and the control lender control the cash flow and asset without running the project. So lender will control the cash flows and the assets of that the projects, what the inflow and outflow of the cash is generated from that project. So it's the control of the cash flow is in the hand of the lender. And visibility, early warning through covenants and the reserves. So they will check the visibility, they find the early warning signals and the special mention account, and has mentioned in the or assumptions that mention in the covenant agreement or the power purchase agreement or the public partnership agreement, tri-party agreement. So look at that agreement and identify the covenants and align the sponsor has skin in the game. So identify the skin in game, how much the debt in that in the equity holders in that in that the special purpose vehicle, and the debt size of cash flow. NaBFID mandate will check the catalyst infra and the precedent risk allocation. That thing will be analyzed and utilized by the NaBFID. So let's move on the next slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the capital stack design, the species. So what are the tranches and the percentage of cost that involve in the infrastructure project, and the key terms that NaBFID will focus, and the purpose of that the key terms we are going to look here. So the first there are the tranches like a senior debt, sub debt, mezzanine debt, equity, viability gap funding, and the grants and the takeout and the bonds. So the senior debt will be the project finance is a 60 to 70%, and it will be for the tenure of 15 to 20 year, and it will be the GSEC, MCLR link, and the sculpted repayment will happen in that thing. And the purpose, match the asset life lowest cost. So in that case, we need to match the asset life with the lowest cost and the minimum cost with the minimum return. Sorry, maximum minimum risk. So with the minimum risk. So the sub debt and the mezzanine dip is for the cost of 5 to 15%, where we are going to key terms that will deal with in the NaBFID is a cash swap, higher coupon, and the equity quicker. So the mezzanine debt has the higher rate of interest as compared to the senior debt, and the risk is higher in the mezzanine debt. So plug gap, protect the senior debt service coverage ratio. So let's discuss on the equity side. 25 to 30% is the cost of capital of the equity that invest in the infrastructure projects, and where the promoter for strategic upfront and the pro data will be the key terms for the equity. And the first loss and alignment, so if the loss will happen, so first loss will bear by the equity holders, but that project is generated huge profit, so the profit amount will be shared in between the equity holders. So viability gap funding grants, it is on the most important terms, guide. Viability back funding and the grants, if suppose the cost of the road construction project, or the wine project, or the solar infrastructure project is 100,000 crore, and this project sponsor will think they will the cost of that project is 8,000 crore, so 800 crore. So in that case the government will grant, or the viability gap funding is a 20%. So that's this case specific. And for the power purchase agreement or the social infra, their government give the grant for some amounts for the sponsor, and that amount will not repay by the sponsor. So the improve the viability, reduce the traffic risks, and the takeout and the bond. So post COD, once the COD is done, commercial operation date, COD stand for the commercial operation date. It is a date on which that project is start generating the revenue, and that project is get live. That is, the end user will use that project, and that project will pay for the charges by using this that project. So NAFED, the credit enhancement possible, and refinance extend the tenures. So that's the capital stocks in the species. So let's move on the next slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the capital stock in a key ratios NAFED monitor. So NAFED will monitor each project wise some key ratios on the basis of industry, on the basis of category, on the basis of the infrastructure project. So that on that basis, the some average and the key ratio that need to be maintained, and that need to be coordinate in the projects. So the debt service coverage ratio. So debt service coverage ratio is a nothing but the available cash flow for the debt service divided by the principal and interest rate that will be paid in within that year. So the all the revenue that generated, the debt cash flow available for the debt service is the revenue generated from that project within year divide minus all the cost or all the expenses that need to be paid, like the operation maintenance cost, taxes, or the some important costs that need to pay. So that's the formula for the debt service coverage ratio. So cash flow available for the debt service divided by the it's debt service. So it should be the average should be 1.2x, and it should minimum the 1.1x, not or the any year, not the continuous. So it should be the better for 1.2 to 1.25. So the loan life coverage ratio, it is an also one of the important and the key ratio that the lender will maintain, and that lender will track. So the checks the life of the loan coverage. So in that ratio we will check entire life of that loan, whatever the duration of the loan. So its loan is at 15 year, 20 year, or 25 years. And the project life coverage ratio, that ratio will calculated on the basis of the project life, entire life of that project's loan life. So ideally the debt service coverage ratio is the better than the loan life coverage ratio and the project life coverage ratio. So debt equity, uh, debt to EBITDA ratio, it is the six time post stabilization. So it's the six time of the amount. And the equity to debt ratio is has been the greater than the three has one during the construction phase. So the 3%, three, if the 100 rupees involvement, so there is the 75% are the debt, and the 20% are the equity portion. So senior analysts note that the debt sculpting to project the cash flows, not the straight lines. So tail period is in your portion. So the tail period is a period when the project life, the entire life of that project minus the debt of the period. So let's move on the next slide, guys. You should study that thing in detail. So let's move on the next slide, where we are going to discuss on the security package and the ring facing in the project finance. So the security package like asset security, cash flow security, and the sponsor and the contractual security. So in asset security we are going to discuss on the first change on all movable and immovable assets. So all the assets that involve in the project finance are the immovable, and that is on the same place movable. So first charge on all immovable and the project cost. And then the the mortgage of land, hypothetical, and the project P and M, performance and the maintenance, so that we do in that thing. So then the cash flow security, so transaction and trust and retention account, the escrow account with the NaFAD has beneficiary. So what are the accounts that NaFAD will beneficiary, so check and their cash flow. And then the assignment of receivable for the power purchase agreement, annuity tools, or the hybrid annuity model, so assignment that thing and receive that things, and charge on the debt service reserve account or the major marginal reserve account. So that's account will charge and they collect the principal and the interest rate on that duration. And the sponsor and contractual security, so plays a 51% share till the 1 year post the COD, and then the 21% assignment of the project documents and the direct assignment. So that's assignment will done. And the step in right via the tri-party agreement, so they will use a tri-party agreement and the step in right will happen, so that connecting the funds and the corporate guarantee plus the cost overrun and undertaking steals the commercial operation date for the plus 6 years. So that's things the project sponsor and contract security will taking care. So let's move on the next slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the covenants and lender dashboard, how it should look like. So types is affirmative, negative, and the financial. And the example of affirmative is the maintenance insurance achieve the COD by SCOD and the submit of the lender independent engineer certificates. And the breaches if commercial operation date is not occur within a 30 days, so that's the breaches of the affirmative. And the negative is no added the date for greater than the 5% cost, or no change in control, or no dividend if the debt service ratio is the less than the 1.2x. So that's the something that need to be monitored by the sponsor. And the down stop penalty pricing the cash swaps, the financial debt service coverage ratio, it should be greater than the 1.1, and the semi-annual debt to equity is 3 has to 1, and ILCR is greater than the 1.2x. So equity curve distributions lockup, so that they need to be managed. And this project specific things that need to be understand by the senior analyst is a cost overrun funding, PLF traffic test, or the distribution look up the debt service coverage, debt service reserve account in the fulls. So let's move on the next slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the reserve account and liability buffers in the transaction trust retention account. TRA stand for the trust retention account. So account sizing and uses the release we are going to here discuss. So the debt service reserve account, major MMRA account, major maintenance reserve account, DRA accounts, and the COFEX reserve. So sizing of the 6 months principal and the interest rate store in the debt service reserve account. 50% cash and 50% can be the BZ and the FD form. So that can also generate the interest. And top up use the release at maturity. So major MMRA is the per LDA report and the periodic measure maintenance cost, how that will be the major maintenance reserve account will maintain, and their fund will be collected on the basis of the lender engineer independent engineer reports only for approve the capex and operation and maintenance budget. So debt reserve account for the bullet repayment, schedule the bullet redemptions, so that's will the sizing and that will be stored. And then the capex reserve, so mandate the expansion of the CA as per the CA, and the lender independent certification is needed, and the uses and the release. So trust retention account waterfall. So what are the stages once the funds are comes in the trust retention account? So how that fund is distributed, so there are some mechanism. So there that will be the statutory and the operation maintenance. So sometime that will be used for the operation and maintenance first, and then statutory, and in some cases that is for goes for the statutory and then operation and maintenance. Because operation and maintenance is important, because once there is no operation cost for the operation and maintenance, how we will go for the statutory. So it's depend on and the things. Then the interest rate will pay, then the principal will paid, then the debt service reserve account amount will be get paid if we remove, and then the major maintenance reserve account will get, then the permitted the investor, and then final amount will get in the account of the sponsor. So that flow you should understand, guys, very well, of the trust retention account waterfall. Let's move on the next slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the disbursement mechanism and money out control in. So money out and the control in, one of the most important concept. So CP2 first drawn. So financial closure, security performance, equity pro rata in approval, the lender independent engineer report or the independent engineer appointment that will be happens, and then the second thing is a construction drawdown, and third thing is a control checks. So the construction drawdown are the points as a sponsor submitted borrowing the request plus the rendered independent engineer certificate and the invoices that we need to tag and the borrowing report, then the lender independent engineer certified physical 50% and the financial percentage. So what are the equals, that percentage is the physical percentage equal to the financial percentage. So independent engineer confirm the quality of the work that are going into the projects where that project is working. So equity first pro data NaBFID not lose money in that thing. So equity is the first and the pro data. So in that case NaBFID, National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development, will not lose the money first, and the direct pay from the transaction retention account and the EPC, not the special purpose vehicle. And then the retention is a 5% held till the PPC, and control check cost to complete take each draw if funded available is greater than the cost to complete and the drawdown, so that need to be checked in that cases. So let's move on the next slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the mini case. So that will definitely help you to prepare better in this role. So let's discuss on the mini case is a NaBFID hybrid annuity model where some person it's 40% of the government investment and the 60% on the sponsor investment. So the capital stock is a 70% NaBFID debt and the 30% is the equity tenure where the concession and 2 years skull fit for the NHI annuity. The security is the first change on the escrow receiving NHI security step in via the CA, and the covenant the cash on commercial operation date is the schedule on the commercial operation date for 180 days, and debt service coverage ratio will look up the 1.5 and top up with the that thing. So that's the covenant that will write in the covenants agreement or the terms and condition of the tri-party agreement, the documents that provided, and the reserve debt service reserve account is equal to 6 month debt reserve. The major maintenance reserve account is a 5% the TPC and per year for the 4 years, and disbursement will the 40% equity upfront, 60/40 debt to equity direct pay, and the EPC via the trust retention account and the lender independent certification. So let's discuss on some questions that has you need to understand as a senior analyst in the NaBFID. So traffic falls 20% versus base. What are the base we think? And the traffic is falls 20%. In that case, if suppose the 100 bikes are passed and only the 80 bikes are passed, so in that case what the protect the NaBFID first to what the product. So that's reserve account usage, then the cash trap, and then the sponsor core. Why the direct payment or to engineering procurement and construction instance of reimbursing the special purpose vehicle. So prevent the funds diversion, ensure the end use, and how do you size the major maintenance reserve account for the 15-year road project. So lender independent engineer report, operation maintenance schedule, build the monthly overlap year and 8 to 15%. And what trigger the distribution lookup? So debt service coverage ratio 1.2x and debt service reserve account not full, and the cash on delivery. So let's discuss on the last slide, guys, where we are going to discuss on the key takeaway for NaBFID as a senior analyst. What you need to take from this video. So guys, the stack is equal to risk, you should understand that and mug up this thing. Senior date size to base the case of cash flows for plus tails, and the equity is a true first loss. If there is a loss will happen, that will be bear by the equity holders. And the security is equal to control transaction retention and retention account is the hard all the cassette touches by the lender covenant early warnings, not to rush the business but get a seat when the business is going good. Reserve and is equal to time debt service reserve account, but the time to cure major maintenance reserve account to capex shock, and disbursement is equal to trust but verify physical progress, financial progress is always. So that's the key things that we are going to learn from this interesting seminar. Structure the date size for NaBFID infrastructure infrastructure project. Once again, guys, thank you so much for attending this interesting seminar, and I am very happy to teach you this part. Once again, guys, thank you so much. Best of luck, do your efforts, and get the opportunity in the NaBFID.